So I was in Germany, Berlin, if you want to know, and you probably should. It's fairly relevant to the story. Well, I mean, it's not super relevant to the story. The story theoretically could have taken place anywhere, but I happened to be in Berlin. Believe me, it was as much a surprise to me as it was anyone else. I had no idea why I was in Berlin. We'll come back to that later. But I was in Berlin, and I had one of those life-changing moments, that moment where your life, as you know it, is splitting into two completely divergent paths that bear no relation to each other, and you've got to pick one of them. Bifurcating, as the kids say these days. Bifurcating. Hashtag bifurcating. Go look it up. It's all over the YouTube viral things right now. I was in Berlin, and for reasons that, again, were not adequately explained to me. I kind of just woke up one morning and went to Berlin. Like, really, I did. It was about a week. I had to book a plane ticket and things like that and figure out somewhere to stay. I ended up staying at this youth hostel because it was wicked cheap and really cool. Actually, they made a ton of cool people there. There was a whole bunch of us. It was like a dozen of us that just sort of hooked up while we were in Berlin. And it was like 12 people from 7 different nations. Most of them were Australians and New Zealanders, if I'm honest about things. About half a dozen of them were either from Australia or New Zealand, and the rest of us were from all over. We just hung out for a couple of weeks. It was wicked cool. But again, getting back to the bifurcation. So I go to Berlin for reasons that are not adequately explained. Basically, I had nothing else to do with my life at that moment. That's really it. I had a job. But I had a job where my boss was pretty cool, and he's like, you want to take a week off? Go ahead and do that. I feel like I believe I had a girlfriend at the time, but I believe it was, as they say on the old Facebooks, complicated. It was interesting, and I'm not really 100% sure if we were together or not at that moment, so I didn't have a lot going on. So I just woke up and said, I think I'll go to Berlin. I went to Berlin for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to walk down the street where David Bowie and Iggy Pop recorded some of the greatest music in history. So we all know the Berlin years. David Bowie, Iggy Pop, Lou Reed all spent time in Berlin and all created some of the most amazing music in their entire catalog. And I wanted to go down that street. I think the recording studio is not there anymore, but I just wanted to walk down the street and kind of smell the history of Bowie. That sounded better in my head than when it came out of my mouth. But back to the bifurcation. So my first day there, I was right in the center of Berlin. The only thing I knew about Berlin was that, frankly, most of the important history of the 20th century had taken place there. But apart from all the history that had taken place in Berlin, which again was most of the 20th century, I knew about the whole U2 Zoo album thing, okay? Now, I didn't know much about it, but I know they wrote a song about the zoo in Berlin. And I had plunked myself down basically across the street from the zoo, because that's literally all I knew about Berlin. I knew amazing, important, really, really important history, and U2. Now, U2 are controversial. I mean, I had a friend of mine, and he was wicked into U2. I mean, this guy was so into U2. And then there was U2's bifurcating moment, the Joshua Tree. And there is pre-Joshua Tree fans and post-Joshua Tree fans, and neither the twain shall meet. So this friend of mine, he was all about pre-Joshua Tree. Oh my God, he loved the U2s. Oh, was he all about U2? U2 this, U2 that, and then Joshua Tree came out, and he dropped them like a bad habit. He basically disowned YouTube after U2, and them too. Both of them. He disowned them after the Joshua Tree. He said, nah, can't do it anymore. They sold out. And I'm like, yeah, but the songs are pretty cool. He's like, nope, can't do it. They sold out. And then there's the post-Joshua Tree people who only acknowledge that period of time and don't embrace the pre-Joshua Tree U2. We're going to come back to Berlin in a second, but I want to wrap up the U2 thing because I think it's important. Say what you will about U2. Say what you will about them. But those boys can write a hit. Those guys can write a hit. I tell you what, they get a catchy song going on. And they had written this whole thing about the zoo. I don't know. Maybe they went to the zoo and they had a good time, and the Edge is like, dude, we should write a song about the zoo. And Bono's like, yeah, that's cool. Let's write a song about the zoo. So that's all I really knew, was the zoo was across the street and U2 had written a song about it. Technically, they wrote a song about the subway station that's near the zoo. But I feel they wrote a song about the zoo. I feel Bono and the Edge and the other two guys from U2, because nobody really remembers the other two guys from U2. Sorry if you're the other two guys in U2, but nobody knows who you are. It's Bono and the Edge and then the other two guys. So I'm going to get tons of comments telling me the names of the drummer and the bass player, but again, I'm not going to remember them because it's just Bono and the Edge. So I assume Bono, the Edge, and the other two guys in U2, who I feel were eating ice cream in the zoo. I feel that's kind of their job. They were over in the zoo going, dude, we should write a song about this. And the Edge, who's probably the smarter of the group, I just get that vibe from him. He's like the leader. He's like, well, what if we wrote a song about the subway station? And Bono's like, that's not going to play. People don't want a song about a subway station. They want a song about elephants. I saw an elephant in the Berlin Zoo. I did go to the Berlin Zoo because, it was across the street, and it was actually wicked fun. It was a really good zoo. You can pet the penguins. So the penguins are in this like open tank, and they swim by like a racetrack. It's like a circular tank, and they just basically swim in circles. I'm sure it's a very boring life if you're a penguin, but if you're a human and you can actually just reach out and like stroke a penguin. Again, that sounded better in my head than when it came out of my mouth. You can like touch a penguin as it's racing by you. Like again, it's like a penguin racetrack. They're wicked oily, by the way. They're oily. They're an oily creature. So if you can just like do that, that's really cool. If you're a human, again, probably pretty dull if you're a penguin. But anyway, I was across the street from the zoo. This is the point of the story. It's not the point of the story. The point of the story is the bifurcation thing. So my first day there, I'm out, as I say, having a kebab. I don't know if I'd actually said that I was having a kebab. I may not have mentioned that part, but I was having a kebab because right next to the youth hostel was a kebab shop. So, it was pretty easy access on the kebab front. And I'm outside, not on the street. I'm at a table because they had tables in the kebab shop. Well, they weren't in the kebab shop. They were actually outside the kebab shop. Now that I mentioned that, because I did say I was outside, and I'm sitting there having a kebab, reading Henry Rollins' Black Coffee Blues, because I always travel with Henry Rollins' Black Coffee Blues. It's my travel book. I have this really nice signed edition of it too. I may or may not have mentioned that, but it's a really nice signed edition. And fun fact about Henry Rollins, he actually has a signature that's legible. He probably practiced that. He probably said, I'm going to be signing a bunch of things. I should probably make my signature legible. So when you open up Black Coffee Blues, you can clearly see that it is Henry Rollins who has signed this. And I just didn't scribble something in there and say, haha, Henry Rollins signed this. No. You could actually read Henry Rollins. I mean, I suppose I could just write Henry Rollins. Now that I think about that, I could do that. I just write Henry Rollins over things. And, not even books that are his. Just on anything, like a table. I think it's the Henry Rollins table. And probably sell it to someone. Somebody will buy that. Some really huge Henry Rollins fan, like bigger than me, is going to go, oh my God, that's Henry Rollins' table. He clearly signed it. I could make a few bucks doing this. I might be onto a stroke of genius here. Anyway, bifurcation. So I'm sitting having a kebab outside my youth hostel here. And this guy comes up to my table. I mean, lots of people were walking by. It's not like the streets were empty. But this guy is specifically targeting my table. He's looking in my direction and walking towards my table. And he comes up and he makes what is the international symbol for, do you have a lighter? Now, if you're not familiar with the symbol, even though it's an international symbol, it is a vague fist with your thumb up, and then you kind of nod your thumb up and down to indicate the striking of the lighter, the ignition of the lighter. It's a pretty clear symbol. We're all fairly educated on these sorts of things, and thank goodness we have international symbols too, like there's, waving hello, or nodding no, or shaking your head no, that kind of thing. There is an international symbol for, excuse me, sir, do you have a lighter? I need fire. And I do not have any. I was interested if you might have some. So again, it's sort of a vague fist. Not really like a fist like you're going to punch someone. It's almost like you're giving a thumbs up, but then you're flicking your thumb up and down to indicate, again, the ignition of the lighter, the creation of fire. And it so happened I did have a lighter on me. Good news for this dude. So I nod, again, international symbol for yes. And I start fishing around in my pockets, which is another good international symbol for let me see if I can locate said lighter that we are, well, I want to say talking about, but we're not really talking about it. We're sort of miming it, really. We're having one big mime fest here in the streets of Berlin. I produce the lighter. And much to this gentleman's delight, frankly, I produce the lighter. And I give it to him. I hand it to him very politely, as one does. And he lights a cigarette because that was the whole point of this. He didn't just want to, make fire and then go, "Yay, fire!" and then give it back to me. He actually had a point to this. He wanted to enjoy a fine tobacco product, and he did not have the means of ignition to get that thing started. So he lights up a cigarette and he hands me back the lighter, as you do. I was polite to him. He's going to be polite to me by not running away with my lighter and going, "Ha ha, I got your lighter," because I would not know where to go. I was in the streets of Berlin and I had no idea what was. I had a tiny little map. It was like this, and this is like a fold-out map, like one of those little tiny tourist maps, but then you unfold it, and it's like the size of a bed sheet, and you can never put it back together properly. I had one of those, specifically to locate that street where David Bowie and Iggy Pop had recorded together. And I had marked it down. I knew exactly where it was. I was going to go there, at some point during my stay there. So the gentleman very kindly did not run away with my lighter. He lights a cigarette, as he does, and he seems to be enjoying it. He's a smoker. He's probably into that sort of thing. And then he promptly sits down at my table, like not at another table, like at my table, and which was bold. I'm not going to lie, it was bold. Didn't see that one coming. Didn't expect that. It just sits right down like it's nothing. Like I'm an American, and we don't do that sort of thing. You don't just sit down with somebody you don't know after taking their lighter and then giving it back to them. You don't do that sort of thing. But I'm like, hey, you know what? When in Rome. I wasn't in Rome. I was in Berlin. Again, across the street from the zoo. I saw an elephant there. Actually, they had several elephants. I actually saw several elephants there. And it was really cool because it was like trying to get this bush that was on the other side of its enclosure. But its enclosure was just like a big ditch that it couldn't cross. So it wasn't like a big fence. It was just like, a ditch. There's no real other way to describe it. It was a big absence of earth is what it was. So, think like earth and then think like there's a bit taken out of it, and that's a ditch. So the bush that have you ever seen an elephant like up close and personal? Not like wicked up close, because they'll step on you and then your day is ruined. But have you ever seen an elephant like wicked up close? I assume pretty much everyone has. Not necessarily maybe not live. All right, probably most people haven't seen a live elephant. I bet if you just poll the population of the planet and say how many people have seen a live elephant, that might be relatively small. I'm pretty sure everyone's seen a picture of an elephant. I'm pretty sure everyone knows what an elephant looks like. Maybe not like 100%. What is there, like 8 billion of us or something weird like that? Maybe not 100%. But I bet you if we polled the majority of the population, all of them, let's say for argument's sake, we could do an instantaneous poll of everyone on the planet. And the question was, have you or have you not seen a picture of an elephant? I'm gonna bet you. All right, you and me, the viewer. I got $1 that says over 80% of people have seen a picture of an elephant. Okay, over 80%. And the other 20% probably live in the middle of nowhere, where they don't have elephants and they don't have pictures of anything. Okay, I don't know who those people are, but I assume they exist. So, have you ever seen an elephant like up close? They're huge. These are big creatures. And it was wicked cool. It was really funny. I took a picture of it. I still have that picture somewhere. I don't know where. Actually, I do. It's about 10 feet behind me in a photo album that I specifically put together of photos of Germany. So when you say, Dave, I don't know where that picture is, you actually created a photo album of your trip to Germany. So Berlin. Actually, I didn't go to any other parts of Germany, in case anyone cares. I couldn't afford to. I simply couldn't afford to leave the kebab shop, frankly. I actually ran out of money while I was there. I'd planned to stay for 3 weeks, and I ended up staying for 2 because the euro was wicked strong at the time. And holy moly, it just destroyed my dollar bill. And 2 weeks down the road, I'm out of money. Like for real out of money. Like not like, oh wow, I'm not going to be able to buy fun souvenirs of my trip to Berlin. I'm like, I can't eat tomorrow. And I had to cut my trip short because I had no ability to produce food or anything for like a week straight, and I was pretty sure I couldn't live for a week without eating. So I actually had to end up cutting my trip short. I had to make this frantic phone call to the airline at like 6 o'clock in the morning, going, basically, you got to get me out of here. I got to go home where there is food in my fridge. Admittedly, it's been there for 2 weeks. It's probably not any good anymore, but at least there is the concept of food in my home where I am not right now. So you got to get me out of here. And they're like, okay, this is going to cost you some money. I'm like, that's going to cost me all the money that I had left, but cool, put me on a flight. And they put me on a flight like that morning, and I was home largely later that day, time zones, jet lag thing. But basically I ate food. So the elephant in the zoo that you two wrote a song about while they were eating ice cream. The elephant had a bush on the other side of the ditch that it couldn't like walk to, but it wanted that bush like wicked bad. Like that elephant was wicked into whatever foliage was over there. So it stood on like one front leg and one back leg and like reached over with its trunk. It was the most amazing, delicate balancing act you've ever seen an elephant do. It was like a circus act. Like it was balancing on two legs, reaching forward. Like there are Olympic gymnasts who couldn't do what this elephant did. And it got the bush. I got a picture of it. Again, it's in the photo album, Dave, that you specifically put together for your trip to Germany. Again, just Berlin. I couldn't afford to go to other parts of Germany. And frankly, I don't know why I would. There's so many things to do in Berlin. I mean, you could spend weeks in Berlin and never see all the cool stuff there. There's so much history in that city. Like, seriously, check out the 20th century if you're unfamiliar with it. I know some of you are. Like, so many important things happened in Berlin, specifically in that city. You're talking World War II. You're talking the Berlin airdrop. You're talking the fall of the wall. I mean, come on. Bits of the wall are still there. It's imposing when you see stuff like that. And then you realize, because you read up on the history a little bit, that they put the wall up overnight. Okay, so you think like building a wall, that takes a while. Right? We had a wall built at our house. It took several weeks, actually. But they put the gist of the Berlin Wall up overnight. Think about that. Now, not all of it, but they put up barriers and barbed wire and stuff, and largely people with rifles, and said, you don't get to come here anymore. Think if they did that in your town. Like you woke up one morning and half of your town was cut off, and there were people with rifles going, nah, dude, you ain't coming over here anymore. Anyway, bifurcation. Let's not get away from that. So this guy just sits down like it's nothing. Like he just sits there and he's smiling at me, and then he starts saying something in German. The problem with that is I don't speak German. I knew exactly enough German to be polite. I could say hello and goodbye, yes and no, please and thank you, and do you speak English? That was the only words that I knew in German. So we're back to miming now, okay? The mime class continues. So I kind of shrug, which is international symbol for, dude, I got nothing here, man. And I don't speak German. I'm sorry. I wish I did, but I don't. I'm an obnoxious American who travels to other countries without knowing the language, and then I just expect people to speak English, which they did, by the way. Pretty much everyone in Germany speaks English because they're much, much smarter than us about learning foreign languages. So I just kind of shrugged. I'm like, eh. And then he rattles off something else in another language. I don't know. I'm going to assume Turkish because there's a huge Turkish population in Berlin. Apparently, outside of Turkey, the largest Turkish population is Berlin. So it's like, if you want to find Turkish people, first go to Turkey, and then after that swing on over to Berlin, because there's tons of them living there. So I'm going to assume Turkish. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm going to assume he said something in Turkish. And I do the shrug again. I'm like, dude, I got nothing here. I didn't actually say that because he may or may not have understood me, and I didn't want to be a complete obnoxious American and go, dude, I got nothing here, because that's kind of obnoxious. And then he says, oh, do you speak English? In English. Like he said that in English. And I'm like, yeah, I speak English. And he says, oh, I speak English too. I speak 7 languages. I'm like, wow. That is 6 more languages than I speak. I didn't say that to him, but I should have. It's one of those moments. You never have those moments like, dang, I should have said that. I do it all the time on this channel. I do recordings of these videos, and then like 3 hours later, I'm like, Oh, that would have been a way better joke at that point. There was one time, I'm not going to tell you where or when it was or what video it was on, but there was one time I did that and I re-recorded something specifically to get a joke in there. Because like 3 hours later, I'm like, oh my God, that was such a funnier joke. Why did I do joke A when I should have done joke B? That would have been way funnier to say. There was one time, I tell you what, if you ever think you can find it, you let me know in comments. You're like, Dave, I think this is the moment that you re-recorded so you could get a better joke in there. And thank God you did, because the first joke wasn't funny. We didn't hear the first joke. We never saw the first joke, never witnessed the first joke, but we're pretty sure it wasn't funny. And the second one was pretty funny. It made me chuckle. Maybe it did. Maybe it didn't. I don't know. That's really all I'm here to do. So dude sits down who speaks 7 languages, and one of them happens to be English, which was very, very coincidental because I also spoke English at the time. And he says to me, "What are you doing in Berlin?" I don't remember his exact phrase, but that was the gist of it. And he was being perfectly friendly. It's not like he was being a jerk about this. It's not like he was being confrontational or anything about it. He was just being friendly, and I assumed, I don't know, I guess German people are friendly. It's not what I thought, but there it is. And I'm not saying German people are rude. They're not. They're actually just very direct. That's one of the reasons that I love the German language. It's so wonderfully blunt and direct. It just says exactly what it means. Do you know what the German is for wash by hand? Wash by hand. That's it. In German. In German. That's it. It's a wonderful, like you look at the Romance languages like French or Italian, Portuguese. They're all over the map with the flowery this and that, and they're putting adjectives in the wrong place, and the verb is 3 miles from the noun. No, not the Germans. The Germans are like, what is the weather? Boom, done. You know, the Germans have no concept of small talk, and I think that's remarkable. So they're not going to sit there and go, hey, how about that sports game last night? If they're saying, hey, how about that sports game last night, they legitimately want to know what the score was. They're not playing around. They're not making idle chit-chat with you. I love that. I'm sure some Germans do small talk, but the culture of Germany is against small talk, and I think that's wonderful. I think that's absolutely wonderful. Just say what the heck you mean. I know, you're laughing right now. You're like, Dave, seriously? Did you just say that? Did you just say what you mean? Because have you seen your channel, Dave? You just waffle on tangents that have nothing to do. Oh, we're going to get back to the bifurcation thing in a sec. You waffle off on tangents that have nothing to do with what you're talking about, and then you're praising a culture that largely stays away from small talk. Dude, you're the king of small talk. I refute that. I'm not the king of small talk. All of this has a point. It may not be a very good point, but it does have a point. So the guy sits down and he speaks 7 languages. We didn't really talk much about that because what he was there for was becoming readily clear. Not to me then, or indeed to you now, because I haven't gotten that far down the road yet. The road less traveled, if you will. So many seniors misquote that in their high school yearbooks. They think they're being like wicked cool and stuff like, oh, the road less traveled. I'm like, what do you mean the road less traveled? You're going to the same college all your friends are going to. You're going to do the same classes all your friends are going to do. And then you're basically going to get the same job that all your friends are getting. You're going to get married, you're going to have kids, and you're going to have a car, and you're going to send your kids to school, and you're going to be in the PTA or the PTO or whatever the heck they call it these days. Don't even know. Not a parent. Don't care. You're going to do the same life that everyone else has. What are you talking about? The road less traveled. You know what I quoted in my high school yearbook? One of the Transformers. True story. One of the Autobots. I forget what the quote was, but I remember I quoted one of the Autobots. I'm not doing this road less traveled nonsense. Everyone else. Okay, so if you were in high school, there were 3 types of people. There were the people that quoted the road less traveled. There was me, who quoted one of the Autobots. Again, I don't actually remember the quote. Okay, so across the street from my in-laws, Mrs. Dave's parents, because that's how in-laws work. Across the street from them is this guy. He's getting divorced now. It's rather sad, but that's not really the point of this story. So there's this guy. When I started dating Mrs. Dave many, many years ago, I would, pick her up at her house where she lived with her parents. Because she'd come back from college and she didn't really have a clear purpose. She was working 3 jobs. I mean, the kid was just going nonstop, but she didn't really have like a clear direction. So she was just kind of like living at her parents' house, working 3 jobs, working her tail off. Across the street from them was this guy. Again, he's getting divorced, so it was like a guy in his family. I'm not just saying it was this random guy sitting there. He wasn't random at all. There's a point to this. But there was this guy sitting there. Well, he wasn't sitting there. He was actually outside in front of his garage smoking a cigarette because he was a smoker, which I suppose kind of ties into the Germany thing because the guy hit me up for a lighter and he was a smoker. So I don't know. It's all probably a causal connection, synchronicity, Jungian thing, I guess. Like Sting would probably have something to say about all this back in like the mid-'80s. Anyway, so this guy would see me going in and out of Mrs. Dave's house. I mean, like when people were there, I wasn't burglarizing the place. But, I would go and pick Mrs. Dave up. She wasn't Mrs. Dave then. She was just dating Dave then. And drop her off and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we go to like, dinner over there or something, like my future in-laws, because they weren't my in-laws yet because we weren't married. We'd have dinner over there. Anyway, he'd see me going in and out. Apparently this guy knew me in high school. All right? Like, knew me well. I have only vague memories of high school. And strangely, it's not due to any illicit substances. That happened after high school. Early 20s were a drag. But it's not due to that. It's just that I didn't care about high school. I had no interest in high school. Nobody should have any interest in high school. It's the least important part of your life. And yet I know people today who are obsessed with what happened in high school. I have friends who I had in high school. I barely know them anymore. But they're still talking about things we did in high school. Get over it. It's the least important part of your life. High school is just a holding ground for puberty. That's it. It's like a holding cell. It's like prison, when they put you in a holding cell until you're allowed to be released into the general population. High school is a holding cell for puberty. Until you get over your hormones, you're not allowed to interact with the rest of society. But this guy across the street, the one who was smoking outside his garage and is now getting divorced, it's a little sad. They seemed nice. I don't really know them very well. Apparently he knew me. This guy comes up, a few weeks after I started dating Mrs. Dave, or the future Mrs. Dave, as we shall now refer to her, because I wasn't married to her then. And he goes to my in-laws. He's like, I know Dave. I know Dave very well. We went to high school together. Dude starts pulling out yearbooks. Dude still got I never even bought my yearbook. Because you got to pay for it, I think. I don't think they gave them away. I'm pretty sure you had to pay for it because it costs money to put these things together. So, you can't just give them away for free. I never even bought my yearbook. That's how little I cared about high school. It just meant nothing. It's the least important time of your life. So this guy's still got his old yearbook. And he runs over and he's like showing my future in-laws pictures of me without my consent, I might add. I didn't even want to turn up for the yearbook photo. I didn't want like any history of me. Like just can we just all move on? But they made me sit down and do a photo, and they made me do the quotes. So I quoted an Autobot because why not? It was a good quote. I wish I remember what it was. The point of that is that I could go find this guy who apparently remembered me very well. I have no idea who he is. And I'm not saying that out of arrogance. I'm not saying, I was above him. No, I just legitimately have no idea who he is. There's a lot of people from high school I have no idea who they are. I still live in the same town. People come up and like, oh, remember such and such from high school? Like, nope, not a clue. I knew you? Okay, cool. I'm sure we had a great time, but I've kind of moved on from high school because that was a really long time ago, and you haven't. Again, it's not arrogance. It's just least important part of my life. But this dude, if I ever wanted to find out whom I quoted, I think it was Bumblebee. I'm pretty sure it was Bumblebee. I could at least go to him and go, hey, can you, I would say dig out that yearbook, but clearly you have it ready. Like, he ran over with the yearbook. Like, you have that ready. If I had my yearbook, which I wouldn't because I didn't even buy it, if I had my yearbook, it would be buried under, like, I don't know, 8 years of tax returns or something, because that's how little I would care about it. But this guy had it at the ready to go. So I could just walk over to him. I should probably get there before the divorce is finalized, because I'm damn sure he's not keeping the house. That ain't going to happen. So I should probably get there before the divorce is finalized and be like, dude, can you just show me the yearbook that apparently you keep in your pocket at all times, and so I can find out what the quote was. So back to the quote thing. There are three people in high school. There's the people who misquote and misunderstand the whole road less traveled thing. There's the people like me who quote something insane just because you don't care. And then there's the people who quote David Bowie's Changes. And these children that you spit on as they, yeah, etc., etc., etc. We all know the song. Hey, look, it's a great quote, but it's horribly misused. If you're going to go to Bowie, he's got way better stuff than this. Go ahead, quote V2 Schneider in your yearbook. I dare you. I dare you. That's one of the songs he wrote in Berlin. I say song. It's just this weird music and just chanting V2 Schneider over and over and over again. Anyway, so the guy who spoke 7 languages sits down with me, again, like it's nothing. And he asks me, what are you doing in Berlin? Not in a hostile, confrontational way, in a friendly, getting-to-know-you way. So, I don't know anything. I'm sitting there with a Henry Rollins book and a kebab. Like, cool, I'll meet somebody. I had already met a couple of people in the hostel. It seemed like a really friendly town. Germans may not do small talk, but they're very, very friendly once you start talking to them. So I say to him, well, I'm on vacation, or holiday, as you Europeans say. I didn't actually say it exactly that way. I probably should have, but I didn't. I don't remember the exact wordage, but I remember what we talked about very, very clearly. And he says, oh, you're on vacation, you're on holiday, you're an American. I said, yes, I'm an American. It's hard to hide us, really. We're rather obnoxious and loud, and we don't really care about anyone other than ourselves. So it's pretty hard to hide the fact that you're an American. And he says, "Oh, you're on vacation. I've been to America. I've been to New York City. Wow, great. I briefly went to New York City. I went to New York City for one night to see Duran Duran. It was a weird night. Weird night." And that's without any drugs or alcohol. It was a weird night in New York City, seeing Duran Duran. Like, I when I was in college, I wrote a whole story about it because I was in a writing program there. I went to college for writing. I was in a performing arts school, but it was one of the only colleges at the time that offered a degree in creative writing. Professional writing, oh yeah, you can find that anywhere. Creative writing, not so much. So I was in college for writing. And I was very high on myself then. I was going to write not the great American novel, the great worldly novel. And it turns out I actually it's not so much that I love writing, I just love words, as you can see from this thing that I do here with the YouTubes and the whatnot. So I wrote a story about it. It was actually very well received by my class. They really liked it. But it was such a weird night in New York City. Like the most tripped out things happened without any drugs or alcohol being involved. We were stone cold sober and we had the weirdest night. Duran Duran was great. I forget where we saw them. I don't know the names of clubs in New York, but I forget where we saw them. It was just the Notorious tour, so it's just the 3 of them before they reformed years later. It was a great show. We had seen them here in Boston, and we basically followed them to New York to see them again. I've seen Duran Duran 4 times, 3 times deliberately and once by accident. I know, you're saying to yourself, Dave, how do you see a band by accident? Here's the thing with that. So I used to work in the city, and I would have to commute back and forth. So I would commute by train and bus because I didn't own a car. It's just that simple, really. You're looking for this big thing of why did you take this long commute? It's because I did not own a motor vehicle. It's just that simple. So I would go in by bus and train. And I was transferring from one train to another, which involved about a quarter-mile walk to the other train station. Now, I could have just stayed on the train that I was at and then gone a little bit further down the line, but it was actually more convenient, and it also met the schedule better if I got out and then walked over to the other train. It was a complicated thing, but in terms of the schedules for the public transportation, it was actually faster to get off, walk over to the other one, and then get on another one, rather than, anyway, long story short, it's not. But the Duran Duran part will be. So I'm transferring. I'm walking that quarter mile. It's I don't know, 8 o'clock at night or something. It was dark, but it was summer, so it was pretty nice out. And there's this area of Boston where for a number of years, because it's basically shaped like an auditorium. It's an outdoor area, but it's all these like levels of steps and things, and it's basically shaped like it should have music playing in there. It's a huge auditorium by a lot of government buildings, and for many years, a few years anyway, they used to do free live concerts there, which was absolutely a thing they should have done. In fact, I wish they kept doing it because it's just made for live music. So I get off the train and I'm walking to my other train, and I'm like, wait a minute, that sounds familiar. That really sounds like The Reflex by Duran Duran. Is somebody playing The Reflex? And by the way, who are all these people? And I look around, I'm like, wait, Duran Duran is playing right now. I'm looking at Duran Duran playing The Reflex right now as I'm walking to my train. So again, I've seen Duran Duran 3 times deliberately, where I purchased tickets, and once where I just accidentally walked through a Duran Duran concert. So back to the bifurcation. The guy has been to New York City, and I'm like, I don't know if I even talked about that. I'm like, I've been there once for one night, and it was a weird night. There was like Secret Service involved. That's not a lie, by the way. Secret Service were involved with that evening. Like the people who protect really, 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 really high up politicians. Like the president or people shortly after them. No, like Secret Service was involved with that night. There's so many parts to it that I don't even want to try to explain to it. I would just say we saw Duran Duran, and the Secret Service were not happy that we were in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's all I'm going to say about it. Fun fact about the Secret Service, that happened in Germany. Oh, not the Secret Service, but like the German version of it. Well, it wasn't really the German version of the Secret Service. I'm sure they have something like that. I mean, somebody's got to protect the chancellor. Everyone's kidnapping chancellors these days. It's like a meme. But so I was going somewhere. I don't really remember where. Now, bear in mind, I only had that small paper map with me that was unwieldy at best. So I tried not to drag it out. So I was just kind of like going in the vague direction that I thought I should be going in, and assuming that I would get there at some point. And I turn a corner, and all of a sudden there's like 3 or 4 German police who are exceptionally heavily armed. And I'm like right in front of them. And the streets are empty, except for these like 3 or 4 heavily armed German police. It's me, like just guy with a backpack on, and a bunch of German police with very, very aggressive looking weaponry. And one of them spins around to me and points his weapon at me and starts yelling something in German. And I swear to God, just one of the scariest things that's ever. I've had a gun pulled on me twice. This was one of them. I won't bother with the other one because it was a very unimportant story. But yeah, I've had a gun pulled on me twice. This was one of those times. And I throw my hands up and just say, I'm sorry, I don't speak German. I don't speak German, just over and over again. And he kind of calms down, and he's like, you have to go the other way. He like kind of waves me off back where I came from. He's like, you can't come this way. You have to go the other way. And I turn around and immediately walk the other way because I'm not going to argue with the man. And it turns out that Colin Powell was coming through Berlin, and that's where his motorcade was coming through, and they were like clearing the streets and making sure it was like wicked secure for Colin Powell to come in and like, have his cab ride through Berlin. So, in the grand scheme of things, not the biggest deal, but little tiny bit scary to have a gun pointed at you by a German policeman that you can't really understand. So the guy who had been to New York and speaks 7 languages sits down with me, and he says, so what are you going to be doing here in Berlin? And I'm like, I don't know. I was going to go, like see a bit of the Berlin Wall, and I want to go to the Checkpoint Charlie Museum and, see stuff about the Cold War and things. And, I want to go to the thing where they have like not a tribute, but basically an area where you can pay respects to the burned books that happened during World War II. There's this really amazing, I guess, installation piece is what you'd call it. It's art, but it's a street, and then as you go down the street, there's this just piece of glass that you can look down into. It's this open part of the street, but I mean, you don't fall in or anything. Like there's a piece of glass over it, and what it is underneath the street, there's an empty library. So it's just bookcases, and it's all white. Everything is white, so it's very stark. and you can look down and sort of experience this art, experience this installation. Berlin is great for art. It's fantastic for art. There was down the street, to like the right. So you go past the zoo, basically, that you two were at with ice cream. You go past the zoo, and there was, I don't know what the name of the gallery was, but I went there because, not only did David Bowie record music in Berlin, but coincidentally, while I was there, this art museum was having a Bowie exhibit of all of like his stage costumes and stuff. So I was like, oh, totally doing that. I didn't know that was going on when I went to Berlin. I just happened to be like, oh my God, there's like a David Bowie exhibit. And I love David Bowie and would really, really like to see a lot of David Bowie clothing. So okay, again, Boy, that really sounded creepy when you say it out loud. I mean, I want to see his stage costumes and stuff, like the Ziggy Stardust costume and all of that. I don't want to see like David Bowie's T-shirts. I don't think, first of all, that would be very interesting, unless it was like Ziggy Stardust-esque or something. So I went down the street to whatever the name of the gallery was. It was like, I don't know, the Berlin Gallery of German Art Museum Gallery something, and I go in there. And to, ostensibly see the David Bowie collection of Ziggy Stardust outfits. And I think they had like the suit from the Thin White Duke era. It was awesome. No David Bowie, unfortunately. He wasn't like presenting it. He was like, hi, I'm David Bowie. Except he would say that in like a British accent because he was British. But that would be wicked cool if David Bowie was like leading the exhibit. It'd be like, hi, I'm David Bowie in a British accent. And here is my shirt. And here is a pair of pants that I wore once on stage. Like, not like yesterday or anything. It's not like David Bowie's laundry. It'd be like, I am David Bowie in a British accent. Here's my outfit from Ziggy Stardust. Boy, did we have a good time on that tour. My goodness, I was on so many drugs. So that would be more fun if David Bowie... And he was alive at the time. David Bowie was alive at the time. So he could have done that. If he felt like it. He could have come to the Berlin Gallery of National German Berlin Galleryness and leaded the tour, but he didn't. He's got better things to do. He was David Bowie, so he's got a lot better things to do, hanging out with Amon and all that. So I walk in the door of the German Gallery, Art Gallery of Germanness, and the centerpiece, the focal piece when you walk in the door was this huge, and I mean huge, like wall-sized canvas. Like a living room wall. This thing was mammoth. And it was painted entirely blue. One shade, I might add. One shade of blue. It was painted entirely blue. One shade. Like literally looked like a wall, frankly. Like you painted your living room wall. And I'm like, that's, boy, that sure is blue. That's a blue canvas there. Boy, that artist has taken a giant canvas and... Yep, painted it blue. Sure has. Yep, no variation in shade or tone or anything. It's just one shade of blue. Okay, and this is the focal piece of the gallery. Again, you walk in the door. This is what you see in front of you. This is what they're saying. This is our art right here. This is our art. Okay, now a while ago, prior to that, I had been in Venice. Like a couple of years prior to that. And Venice I went to deliberately because I'm like, I feel that's one of those things everyone should see Venice. And it is indeed just a stunningly beautiful city. Like you can't even encompass how beautiful the city is. It's also very depressing because it's full of trash. People just throw things in the canals, like just plastic bottles and just trash. So it's a weird dichotomy in Venice. It's stunningly beautiful. Like, we could strive for centuries and never come up with anything as beautiful as Venice. Also very sad and depressing because people treat it like garbage, literally. But while I was in Venice, I got wicked into the surrealists because there's a bunch of them there. I like the Guggenheims basically owned Venice, and there's a bunch of Guggenheim museums over there, including, I might add, Pegeen Guggenheim's museum. Okay, Pegeen Guggenheim is like... All right, look, I don't know her personal history. Maybe she's really up in the Guggenheim life. I don't know. But it seems to me she was like the not so well thought of Guggenheim. And she got a museum because they all got museums. Like if you had the name Guggenheim after your first name, you got a museum. It's just like your thing. They just like gifted you a museum on your 21st birthday or something. Here, have a museum, fill it with stuff. And Pegeen Guggenheim thought she was an artist, because she hung out with artists and she had museums with art in them, and her whole family was about art. Turns out, Pegeen Guggenheim can't paint. Pegeen Guggenheim's art, of which there is a whole wing, it may not surprise you, gentle viewer, there is a whole wing in the Pegeen Guggenheim Museum of Pegeen, not Peggy, Pegeen Guggenheim, a whole wing devoted to her own art. Her own art is refrigerator art, okay? It, in a very real and literal sense, looks like a 5-year-old painted something for mommy. It ain't good. But you're a Guggenheim. So you get to stock a whole wing of your museum with your own art. And people come and pay money to see it. So I got wicked into the surrealists there. Max Ernst and all that crowd. And that led me to the Dadaists. And we all know my relationship with Dada. So putting the surrealists aside in Venice, which again is stunningly beautiful, unfathomably beautiful. I also lost 10 pounds in Venice. Seriously. Like, I lost 10 pounds because you have to walk everywhere. People are like, oh yeah, there's no cars in Venice. No, there's no wheeled vehicles. There can't be. Because every 5 steps there's another bridge with, steps on it. There's no bicycles. There's no roller skates. There's no skateboards. It's like the wheel skipped Venice. It's kind of cool, actually. They got boats. They've mastered the boat thing. But it's like there's no wheels in Venice except for those little shopping cart things that old ladies have. And by the way, it's singularly old ladies. Like, old guys don't have it. And young ladies don't have it. And it's singularly for old women. Those little shopping carts where they go to the grocery store. I'm sorry, I don't know if that's being insulting, but I've literally never seen anyone else use it. If you have a photo of somebody else using one of those shopping carts, please go ahead and put it on the Discord or something. Go ahead. But I don't know if I'm being insulting. If I am, I apologize, but I've literally never seen anyone else use those little grocery shopping carts. Okay, the ones you kind of trail behind you. It's like a basket, but it's on like 2 wheels. And then it's got a couple of legs, so when you're not holding onto it, it doesn't fall over. Because nobody likes that. So those are the only wheeled objects in Venice. And you'd see little old ladies going by with their shopping and whatnot. But I lost 10 pounds while I was there because you walk everywhere. And I was kind of, vaguely calculating at the end of my day, because I was walking all over. I mean, you just want to walk in Venice. You want to walk and just see how amazingly beautiful it is. There were some things I did. I went to a lot of museums and galleries and stuff like that. The art is amazing, apart from Pegeen Guggenheim, who really just needs a sticker or something for her art and go, good job, Pegeen. Apart from her, you just want to walk in Venice and see how amazingly, stunningly beautiful it is. I didn't even take photos because I didn't want to ruin it in a weird way. I just wanted to kind of breathe it in, much like the street where David Bowie and Iggy Pop recorded music. I just wanted to kind of smell the history, really. So I lost about 10 pounds. I estimated I was walking like 6 to 10 miles a day. A day I was walking 6 to 10 miles. And not eating that much, by the way, because I also don't speak Italian. So I figured out how to say 1 slice of pizza to go, please. That's it. Porta la via. To go. Porta la via. That was the one phrase that I kind of took from my trip to Venice. Porta la via. To go. I would like to take it away, please. And that's pretty much all I ate. So I'd have like a slice of pizza for lunch and then walk 6 to 10 miles. I'd have a cappuccino in the morning. And that'll get you going until lunch, let me tell you that. Holy moly. That's just like you're shot full of adrenaline. It's this tiny, tiny, tiny little cup of coffee. And I'm like, this is not enough coffee for me. And then I drank it. I'm like, oh my God, that is way too much coffee for me. And you'd be going for like 6 hours. And then, you'd have a slice of pizza for lunch. And then I'd walk again. I was walking like 6 to 10 miles a day. And I lost 10 pounds by the time I got back. I was only there 2 weeks. And I had lost easily 10 pounds, possibly more. Like, I came back from Venice, and one of my friends was like, oh my God, what happened to you? I'm like, what? She's like, you're so thin. Are you okay? Are you sick? I walked everywhere. So back to Germany and the blue thing. So I walk in the door of the German Gallery of German Art and Artiness, and there's this huge wall-sized blue canvas. And wow, that is very blue. I wonder what the title of it is. So I walked up to it because this is their focal point. This is what they're saying represents their gallery and art in general. I walk up to it and I look at the title, and damned if the title isn't blue. That's it. One word. Blue. So my man, my dude, my art guy, wow, what a gig. What a gig. He just got a giant, he probably paid more for the canvas than anything else because it was a huge canvas. I can't stress that enough. It was like the size of somebody's wall. And he got that, and he went down to the hardware store. I'm telling you that right now. He did not go to an art paint store, where you like buy art paint, like paint for art. He didn't go there. He went to the hardware store and got a gallon of blue and a roller and just bang that canvas out. I'm going to estimate it took about maybe 30 minutes to put this together. He let it dry, and he titled it Blue. And this is the focal point, or was at the time, the focal point of the National Berlin Gallery of Arty Berlininess. Okay? And at that moment, I looked at the entire concept of art and said, I can do that. What? Are you kidding me? That's art? Wow, anyone can get into the art game. It made me question the nature of art, which eventually led to this whole YouTube thing. It did. And that's not the story. The story is the bifurcation, as the kids say these days. Hashtag bifurcation. That's the story. But it led to my questioning of what is art when basically a painter, because and I don't mean an art painter. I mean somebody who paints your house. I mean somebody who's like a contractor, because that's clearly what he was. He must have had the same vision I did. He must have walked into some gallery. Let's call him Bob, for sake of a better term. So Bob the painter, who again paints your house, not an artist, paints your house. You call up Bob, you're like, Bob, I got a couple of walls that need a little touch up. Bob's like, I will be right over in about a week or so after I buy the materials, and we kind of scope out the job and see the scope of it and write you a proposal, and we'll sign off on a contract. But after all of that, I'll be right over. So Bob the painter went into, I don't know, the Portugal National Gallery of Portuguese art and Portugal things. And maybe there was a huge canvas there that was red. And the title of it was Red. And Bob the painter, who again, not an artist, nope, Bob the painter who paints your house, he's like, I can do that. Except I'll do it in blue. That'll shake the art world. That'll rock the art world. I'll do it in blue. It really made me question the nature of art. Because this is not art. Except it is. Except somebody said, this piece of blue canvas somehow is art. Like, if I painted my wall that blue, and I went to sell my house, I don't get to, like, tack on bonus money because I have a piece of art that is my wall. Maybe I'll try it. Maybe I'll try that. I'm just going to paint a wall blue. Actually, these walls are blue. I can't really see them right now because I have the main light off. I'm just kind of sort of illuminated by the glow of the monitors, 3 of them to be precise. Because I was warming up by grooving out on some Gary Newman. And Berlin actually ties well into Gary Newman. You wouldn't think it would. You'd be like, Dave, this is going to be about Bowie and Iggy Pop and maybe Lou Reed, even though you think you like Lou Reed a lot more than you actually do. I mean, you do like Lou Reed, Dave, you do. But, you don't really listen to a lot of his music, do you? You just kind of like Lou Reed. That's really it. If I'm being honest with myself, and I am, I just like Lou Reed. I enjoy liking Lou Reed music. I don't actually listen to a lot of Lou Reed music. But I thought to myself, long past the bifurcation moment, that happened day one, but later on in my abbreviated trip to Berlin, later on I said to myself, I am going to go stand on that street where David Bowie and Iggy Pop recorded some of the greatest music in history, and I'm going to listen to their music. Back in the days where it was like, you actually had to have headphones and stuff like that. So I'm going to listen to their music. I'm just going to stand there. And it's just going to be one of those cool moments in life. I'm going to listen probably to Bowie and just like groove on the music history that happened there. And I did go back to that street to do that. But I ended up listening to Gary Newman's Cars, because that song more accurately represented the vibe of Berlin. Berlin is an incredibly exciting city. It's so much energy there. Like, it's like Berlin is like a giant cup of cappuccino. It's just everything's jittery and alive, and there's just so much energy and youth, and just everything's happening there. It just feels very, very exciting. And Gary Numan's Cars more accurately represented that. So I stood on this street and I listened to Gary Numan's Cars, and it's just one of those like really perfect moments in your life, like, boy, that was fantastic. That was absolutely perfect. I love that. And you know what? While I'm here and I'm here doing this thing, I am going to finally publicly apologize to Gary Numan. I owe Gary Numan a very real and a very public apology. So first off the bat, sorry, Gary Numan. Okay? I discounted your music for many, many years. I thought Gary Numan, yeah, guy who wrote Cars. Okay, we all know Cars. Everybody likes Cars. It's true. Everybody likes Cars. It's science. Far more people like Cars than have seen pictures of elephants. Ha! You didn't think I'd get back to that one, did you? So everybody knows Cars. Everybody likes Cars. And that's all I really knew. That's all I knew. I kind of knew Our Friends Electric vaguely. And I kind of knew like Down in the Park because I'd listened to a cover version of it. But basically Gary Numan was Cars. That's all I knew. And then many, many years later, I'm doing the YouTube's thing here, and I'm going through videos, and up pops a Gary Numan song that I'd never heard of. My Name Is Ruin, which is now one of my favorite Gary Numan songs, and it's just in my feed. Like, oh, you like Gary Numan and other artists of that genre. Would you like to listen to Gary Numan's My Name Is Ruin? It's a really cool live version, which has his very young daughter singing with him. And none of that was in it. It was just like, Gary Numan, My Name Is Ruin, live, something, something, something. Anyway, so I clicked on it. I'm like, yeah, cool, I'll check it out. And I immediately got sucked into that song. Whoa, this is amazing. My Name Is Ruin is an unbelievably good song. And that led me to another one and another one. I'm like, I did not understand. Again, I am very sorry, Gary Numan. I am very sorry, Gary Numan. I did not understand that you had been quietly making amazing music for the past 40 years. And I deeply, deeply regret that I was not listening to it this whole time. I am playing catch up right now. I'm like frantically listening to Gary Numan music to make up for lost time. Mrs. Dave and I just saw him in Boston this year. He was coming around with Ministry. Oh, Ministry. Wow. Wow. Nobody loves Ministry more than me. I love Ministry more than Al Jorgensen loves Ministry. But boy, Ministry are a little tired these days. It's time to put it to bed, guys. But Gary Numan wiping the stage with everyone. Not only is he making amazing music, but he's also kicking the butts of everyone else live. So Front 242 opened, which is a very meh band. I mean, they're fine, but they're meh. Look, no shade to Front 242. They're fine. Like, I love the industrial scene. I was a huge industrial scene. I still am a huge industrial scene guy. But and Ministry closed, and Gary Numan was the middler, and he just wiped the stage with Ministry and Front 242. Like, honestly, after Gary Numan played, a lot of people just left. They're like, yeah, that's cool. We're done. Great show. Loved every second of it. Loved every second of it. So again, a very real and public apology to Gary Numan. Gary Numan, you're not listening to this, but I'm sorry. I discounted your music for many years, and I shouldn't have. Okay? You've been making amazing music for 40 years, and I am working to keep up. That, and I'm also getting caught up on Eric B. and Rakim. Wicked into them now. Where were these people? Where was Rakim? And you're going to say to yourself, dude, Rakim was a huge hip-hop inspiration. Like, he was a mammoth figure. Where were you? And you're right. And I'm going to say, you know what, you're right. I wasn't really into rap or hip-hop back then. So I've been catching up on Eric B. and Rakim because Rakim is just unfathomably good. My God, like every song. It's not like he's got one good song. Like any Rakim song is amazing. Just stunningly good. Anyway, Bifurcation Dude says to me, are you going to be working while you're here in Berlin? Which was a very weird question. Like, I have established that I am on vacation. That's clear. I've established that I'm on vacation. And really, the base concept of vacation is not working. It's kind of the point, if we're honest about things. The base thing about not working is the not working part. Like, here's my vacation. I leave work And I don't come back for a set period of time. Generally, about a week is the minimum anyone would classify as a vacation, unless you're going to call it a mini vacation or a staycation or a long weekend. Okay? The Brits do the long weekend thing more than we do. We have long weekends, we just work through them. So the Brits are more about the long weekend nonsense. But I think a week would be everyone's rational description of what would qualify as a base vacation, and that is indeed a time away from work. So to be asked by the guy who spoke 7 languages and smoked if I was working was weird. And that just sort of popped a little tiny flag in my head, like, what are we discussing here, sir? I didn't say that to him, but that's definitely what I was thinking. I'm there with my Henry Rollins and my kebab. I'd probably finish my kebab by now. I'm pretty sure I'd probably finish the kebab. I was probably thinking about buying a ticket to the zoo. I don't remember. Did I go that day? Or did I go later on? I think it was a few days later, because I wanted the zoo to be like a day. It's a big zoo. You're going to want some time with that. So, bifurcation guy, who, again, is smoking and speaking 7 languages and had been to New York City, says, are you going to work while you are here? I thought, wow, what a weird question. And I said, no, I'm on vacation. And I didn't go into the long description of what a vacation is or isn't like I did with you guys. I just sort of let him sit with that information. And again, he spoke 7 languages. In at least one of them, he can figure out what a vacation is, I thought. Or again, a holiday if you're Europeans. We generally reserve holiday for like a Christmas or an Easter, taking the original definition, holy day. Rather than just applying holiday all willy-nilly to any time off of work. We have holidays and we have vacations. Those are 2 very, very different things. So, bifurcated guy probably wraps his head around the idea that I am somewhat confused by his query as to whether I would be working, again, while I was on vacation. Hang on, I have to turn off my recording software and then turn it back on, otherwise it's going to shut off by itself and I won't know that it did it. 1 second. So bifurcated guy says, are you working? And I'm like, no. And I've got plans. I've got things that I want to do while I'm here in Berlin. I didn't realize then that I was going to run out of money so hard. So I was pretty free on the kebabs. So like, yeah, give me 2. You know what? Give me 2 kebabs. I need 2 kebabs. They were really good kebabs. I ate there almost every day. I really did. And the only depressing part about Berlin, which I knew going into it, is like my other options were like Burger King or Dunkin' Donuts. Like those places are everywhere. So the crew that I hooked up with while I was there, again, there was about a dozen of us, all different nationalities, except half of them were either from Australia or New Zealand. We're going out one night. Because we all had jet lag, and we all had completely different jet lag. Like the Australian guy, he's like 12 hours ahead, and I'm like 6 hours ahead and behind or whatever. We're all wrecked. And we're just going nonstop because none of us knew when the hell to sleep. So we're just randomly doing things at 2 o'clock in the morning. 2 o'clock in the morning. In the middle of Berlin, which is a very safe city. It's actually one of the safer cities. It depends what part, but most of the city is very, very safe. And there were 12 of us, so, we weren't really feeling threatened by going out at 2 o'clock in the morning in a major city. So we go out at 2 o'clock in the morning because none of us are sleeping. And if we were, we didn't know when to sleep anyway. So we're going out at 2 o'clock in the morning, and one of the guys who I believe was one of the Australians. There's always Australians everywhere. Ask Henry Rollins. That is not my line of story. Henry Rollins does a long thing about how you always find Australians. Anywhere you go, there's an Australian dude standing there. And I had about 3 of them. The other 3 were from New Zealand, which was weird. It's because New Zealand is basically Australia's Canada. It's Australia, but quieter and more polite. The 12 of us go out. It was like a couple of Americans. There was me and another American. I hung out with him a lot. He was a lot of fun. And he spoke English, which really helped because, he was an American. And we go out at 2 o'clock in the morning. This one Australian dude's like, I know where there's this really awesome 24-hour restaurant where we can get like a real restaurant, not like Burger King or a kebab or something. We're gonna sit down, we're gonna have a real meal, and we'll try to get maybe like some real German food and stuff like that, and have a really good experience at 2 o'clock in the morning with the 12 of us. And we're all like, cool. And there was this Israeli kid that was with us too. Wow, what an interesting guy he was. I talk to him nonstop because I'm really interested in people who aren't me and who have different life experiences than I do. So he was from Israel, and his life experience was completely different from my experience. And I talked to him like nonstop. I was just like questioning him. I was like interviewing him, like, what is your life like? Because again, I don't say that lightly. I know you watch this channel and you think that all I do is think about myself, and I do. That's not incorrect. I'm an egomaniac with an inferiority complex. I need the whole world to acknowledge me, but then when they do, I get shy and hide. So I do think about myself a lot, but really, I'm fascinated by people who aren't me, who have like a radically different life experience. And this kid, holy moly, did he have a radically different life experience. He'd just gotten out of the military, and he was like taking a year off before he went back to like a job or something. And he would talk about just the things that he went through getting to work that you and I don't go through. But anyway, the 12 of us march over there, like 3 New Zealanders, 3 guys from Australia, a couple of Americans, the Israeli kid, and I don't remember who the rest of them were. And we walk over to this restaurant that this one guy knew of. And he says, it's a 24-hour restaurant. It's open 24 hours a day. So we can go anytime. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. We're going to go get some food. And we're like, cool. Because we don't even know what time it is anymore. We're so jet lagged. And we're hungry. And I didn't realize I was going to run out of money. So I'm like, cool, let's go get some food. And we go there. And the door's locked. And there's a guy outside sweeping the sidewalk around the restaurant. And the Australian guy who led us there, he's like, dude, what's up? I don't know if he actually said, dude, what's up? I say that more than anything. So he said, what's up? I thought this place was open 24 hours a day. And the guy who presumably either owns the place or works there says, yes, it is open 24 hours a day. We close for 1 hour a week to clean the place because we're open 24 hours a day. 1 hour a week to close the place so we can clean it. This is that hour. You picked the 1 hour. He didn't go that into length with this. I did. But you picked the 1 hour when we are closed in the entire week. 7 days out of the week, 24 hours a day, you picked the 1 hour that we are closed. And we're like, well, dang. And we turned around. I don't actually remember what we did after that. We didn't go to the zoo because it was 2 o'clock in the morning. And Bifurcated Guy is asking me, are you working here? And I said, no, I'm on vacation. And he says, would you like to work here? I'm like, what? What? What's going on here? Now I'm feeling a little squirrely here. What is going on here? He says, would you like to work here? I said, I must have said something to the effect of, what do you mean by that? Like, I'm on vacation. My whole point is to go to the zoo and eat ice cream like the bass player in U2. And then probably go see some, like, wicked cool, World War II, Cold War history. And then I'm going to check down the street and look at a big wall of blue and go, psh, I can do that. So I said, no, I didn't plan to work while I was here. And he says to me, again, the whole point of this is that bifurcated moment where your life is going to split into 2 completely unrelated, divergent paths, and you must pick one. You have a 50-50 choice here. You've got to pick one of these 2 options. And that moment happens in a kebab shop in Berlin, outside a youth hostel across the street from the zoo where the wicked cool elephant was getting the bush by standing on 2 legs. And I assumed the bass player from U2 was in there somewhere eating ice cream. And probably the drummer. And nobody knows who they are. It's really just Bono and the Edge, isn't it? The guy says to me, who speaks 7 languages and went to New York City and smokes, he says to me, my cousin, I swear to God this is true. I wouldn't lie to you guys. I have no impetus to lie to you guys. It doesn't benefit me. People only lie for 2 reasons. They're pathological. They can't help it. Or they benefit in some way. Usually to avoid a consequence of some sort, or possibly to gain something. I don't benefit by lying to you. I gain nothing by lying to you. So this is absolutely true. He says to me, my cousin, he has, and I'm gonna say I've got to tone this down, but actually he toned it down. I was gonna say I got to tone this down for YouTube, but he toned it down. He was very subtle for what he was saying. He says, my cousin right in a kebab shop, mind you. The guy sits down, bold as brass, as my Irish aunt used to say. Still says, actually, she's still alive. I just sent her a Christmas card. Bold as brass, the guy says, my cousin, he has an erotic film company. And a good-looking guy like you. First of all, he called me good-looking, and I smiled at that. I'm like, oh, wow. You think I'm good-looking? Really? Really? I mean, I wasn't bad, but, I wasn't, like, movie star material. Even if it was that kind of... I'm like, wow. And that was a good opening, by the way. Way to sell it. Way to sell it. You open with, you're good-looking. Because it's pretty hard to not like someone who just called you good-looking, right? Right? If someone came out and they're like, wow, you're gorgeous, you're going to be like, oh, I like you. It's pretty hard to... And this is also a bit of Henry Rollins, because he has this whole thing about, it's hard to hate someone who likes you. You can't be like, oh, I hate you, and then they come back with, but I really like you. And then it's like hard to hate them, because they're like, oh, you like me. So really good sales technique. I'm sure this guy did this all the time. He was just effectively a talent scout, and he was going around to the story writes itself. You can see what's happening. You can see the guys just going around to local youth hostels and just targeting for anyone with acting experience, I guess. So the guys, and he opens with, you're a good-looking guy like you. Way to sell it. That draws me in. Now I'm interested in what you're saying, because you just called me good-looking. You just called me good-looking. So the guy says, my cousin, and I assume he could have said this in 7 different languages. I bet he has. I bet he said that in 7 different languages to 7 different people, probably that morning. I was one of them. He says, my cousin, he has an erotic film company. And he used the word erotic, which is a little antiquated, isn't it? But that's what he called it. Again, he was trying to be subtle, I guess. He was trying to kind of soften it up a little bit. And he says, a good-looking guy like you, if you did 3 movies, 3 films, I don't remember what he called it, 3 films, you could make a lot of money. And that's the moment. And I had to stop and realize my life is bifurcating. It is splitting into 2 moments right now, 2 paths, 2 directions I can go. And it's all based on a yes or a no. And I didn't realize the implications of it then. That's the problem. Then I just laughed in his face. I'm like, and in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my God, I just got asked to do porn. And in my mouth, the words that came out of my mouth were something to the effect of, that's very kind, but no thank you. And he took it, and he's just like, and he, no hassle. He just smiled and said, okay, thank you. And he got up with his lit cigarette that I had provided fire for. And he didn't get a kebab. He wasn't there that long, honestly. Maybe he had already eaten. I don't know. He probably already had breakfast or lunch or something. But he did not get a kebab. He just and he was totally chill about it. He just got up and walked away, said thank you, and have a nice day, basically, or whatever the German equivalent of that was. And walked away, and that was it. And I chuckled, I laughed, and I continued to eat my kebab. I may have finished it at that point, I'm not sure. And read Henry Rollins. Again, Black Coffee Blues. I never travel without it. It's my travel book. It's like some people bring their own pillow. I bring Henry Rollins' Black Coffee Blues because I draw a lot of inspiration from that. And I only saw later, years later, the impact of that moment. What if I had said yes? Where would my life be? Now, logically, I understand where my life would probably be. I'd probably be dead in a bathtub with several vital organs missing. I get that. I understand that. But what happened is I ran out of money and I went back to my life. And my life has actually been pretty good, all things considered. Or at least it, certainly got infinitely better after I met Mrs. Dave. Struggles in youth as we all do, but I chose the road, I guess, more traveled, where I just went back to my life. But that led to Mrs. Dave and having fun with her and just having this amazing life and this whole YouTube nonsense that I do. When I looked at the blue painting and it kind of destroyed my concept of what art was, eventually putting the erotic film company aside, eventually that leads me to doing exactly what I'm doing right now, which is this. And I'm not sure what this is, but I don't think this is any less art than painting a canvas blue, calling it blue, and saying that's art. First of all, at least I'm putting more work into this. I got to edit this thing later. Actually, I'm not planning on editing it. This is just one long stream of consciousness. The only break was to shut off the recording software and put it back on again, because I don't know what the deal is. Anything after an hour, sometimes it just arbitrarily feels like shutting itself off. Maybe it feels like I've left. Maybe it feels like I'm AFK. And like, oh, he's probably gone. Let's just shut down. Where in fact I am still recording. So I feel I'm putting more work into Captain Blue and his blue painting of blue. And having that conception of art somewhat shattered leads me to where I am now. Now, the other path was 7-language smoking New York City guy and his cousin with the erotic film company. And to this day, I still wonder, what would my life be if I'd said yes? Again, logically, I understand I'd probably be dead in a bathtub, missing several vital organs. That's clear. But let's say it wasn't. Let's say his offer was legit. What would have happened? Because maybe I didn't leave Germany at that point. Maybe I never went back. I mean, the guy said I was good looking. I guess I could make a lot of money. Just that bifurcation that I still think about. But yet somehow that bifurcation, dude with the cigarette who didn't get a kebab, hanging out across the street from the zoo, leads me here. Leads me here to this YouTube thing.